Welcome back to the almost bi-weekly podcast, the Frosty Canucks. I'm your host, Jason, along with Steven.
Whatever, man. It doesn't matter. Hi!
I realized that mid-sentence. I was like, wait, I'm supposed to refer to you as not...
Yeah, you got 2 weeks off. You forgot that
I forgot everything.
To just refer to me the same way you do in fucking real life.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, man. You know what? Speaking of, because of the amount of time that the lockdown's been happening, we have not seen each other in person for almost... No, it's almost 2 years now. It's crazy.
Getting there. It would have been Christmas was the last thing.
Yeah, Christmas in 2019.
That everyone was together on my father's side, so yeah. I doubt that's gonna change anytime soon.
I know we talked about this before, but I think that the people who are from Toronto in our family, well, not from Toronto, but they live in Toronto now, will be irresponsible and try to suggest that we should have a gathering. And I hope that all of the reasonable and sensible people in the family shoot that shit down, because I ain't about that.
Neither am I. I know my folks are usually the one that do Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I don't expect that we'll hear anything about that.
They do not plan on doing anything either side, so just because it's too risky at the moment. And
yeah, I have a feeling another Christmas Zoom call is going to happen for my direct family, so I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I thought it was fine. It's not exactly the same as doing it in person, but then also I don't have to deal with, like seeing my family. So as soon as the call ended, I was just like, yeah, I can go back to playing video games. I don't have to worry about anything. I don't know if Mom listens to these podcasts regularly, but I don't know. It just is what it is. I'm sure that by now she realizes that is a very consistent thing, even though I'm an adult. She was kind of like upset about it when I was a teenager, but it's been like 10 years, so she's probably still upset about it, but at least she's used to hearing me be fucking shitty and not want to spend time with my family. Yeah. So I guess completely unrelated, you have a PlayStation 5 now.
This is true.
Want to talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. It was either a Monday or a Tuesday morning. I had done all my work so far for the day, and I decided, I'm curious, has there been any releases of the PS5 this month? Because there's like a certain site, I think it's like now in stock /PS5, something like that, that's been reporting when Canada has. It's once a month, glorious PS5 drop, all 10 of them.
I'm just picturing there's like a group of people who are doing reconnaissance, and they're like in a bush, and they're like at the docks with binoculars watching the crate with the PS5s is lowered down off of the ship, and then a bunch of men in suits with sunglasses on walk up to the crate, it opens, some other men in suits with sunglasses on hand them 10 PS5s, as you said, and then the crate closes and it goes back on the ship and the ship sails off, and these motherfuckers go oh, we gotta update the website.
All the website says there are 10, and it's just but where?
Yeah, somewhere.
We don't know that part. It changed 15 hands along the way.
Yeah, this is like the PS5 Cartel.
It pretty much is a cartel.
Yeah, so you finally have one.
So back to the site, I went down to the comment section because I was like, I'm sure I'm going to see some funny comments about people complaining. And one helpful comment was, there's a drop happening at 10 a.m. at what was EB Games, because now it's being changed to GameStop up here as well.
That makes sense. They're just having consistent brand across both
regions.
regions.
No, it does make sense.
Especially after all the stuff that's happened with GameStop in the news. I'm pretty sure that everyone knows that that's what the company is named, even whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when we had Future Shop and Best Buy and Best...
Yeah, but Future Shop was just Best Buy, right? It was just like
Future Shop was owned by Best Buy as well, and then...
It was just a shell company.
And they shuttered all of them at the same time.
Yeah, it was like a shell company to get their foot into Canada, and then once they got Best Buy proper into Canada, they basically... Yeah, you're right, they closed...
Fucking killed them all.
100% of the stores. I think that they transferred over some of the employees, but some people definitely got laid off in that.
And it was really sudden, too.
Yeah.
There was no going out of business sale.
No, they just moved the fucking stock
shuttered.
over from one store to the other.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Almost all of the Best Buy locations were on the same fucking block as the Future Shop ones, so like...
They were.
Just get like a moving truck and move them over.
It was so redundant.
Well, like I said, it was just a shell company to get their foot into Canada.
Makes sense.
You gotta think that whoever dropped that comment worked at the GameStop and knew that they were coming in and was like, oh man, I'm gonna do my good deed of the week. I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna tell the gamers how to get the PS5.
A chance to get the PS5.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, obviously, it's not like a surefire thing, but you got one, so.
I did. Went onto the site, got into the waiting list, actually got through.
All right.
And I hadn't set up an account yet.
Oh my god, you moron. But you still got it?
Well, I still got it.
What the hell?
I initially had tried to get in as a guest, and then that didn't work. They're like, this bundle's not available for guests. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, because it's a high demand item.
Made the account really, really quickly. Thankfully, Google already has like auto-filled in like address and all that other shit. So if that auto-filled in quickly, put in my payment, and just prayed that it actually went through.
And it did, obviously.
And then it did. And then I refreshed the page for like an hour straight going, it's gonna get canceled, it's gonna get canceled.
And it didn't.
It didn't. And then it said it shipped, and it was shipped like 2 days later.
With the change in hardware, you had already been playing some games on the PC that you and your wife share. So, as far as like a graphics or a load time from like either of those standpoints, have you noticed a substantial difference? Or is this just like, do you feel like the impact was kind of lessened because you actually used proper hardware instead of the fucking shit that the PS4 is so... It's acknowledged that the PS4 is so old, and then like the PS5 actually current technology, the gap between those two things is very large.
Yeah, it was definitely muffled by the change to going from PS4 to PC. I would definitely agree with that statement. There are some games that I purchased on the PS4 that had really long loading times, and I've installed them and done some tests with that just to see how quickly they go. One game being Call of Cthulhu, because my wife really wanted to play that, was 2 minutes to load Chapter 2, and then on the PS5 it was like 10 to 15 seconds at most. So, substantial difference if you're someone who's upgrading from the PS4 to PS5.
Yeah, well, it's...
For sure.
But like, have you played any PS5 stuff, or is it just like PS4 stuff on the PS? Like, because basically the whole system backwards compatible, right? So
I've played the Astro's Playroom, which is the essentially the tech demo.
Mm-hmm.
That is a playable game. It's actually probably one of the better demos, I'd say. Maybe followed behind Wii Sports.
I was going to say, Wii Sports is probably the single best pack-in game that any system has ever launched with.
I'd say that it's up there, but below Wii Sports for sure. Fortunately, you can just delete that afterwards because it comes pre-installed. The other game I played was the Bugsnax game. That was the first freebie PS5 game with the PS Plus. So
I assume we're going to hear more about that when we get into the games we've been playing.
We will.
Okay, so you don't have to get super duper into that right now then. I guess my one last question with regard to the PS5 is the controller, is the jerking it off thing, the haptic feedback, some people have been creaming their pants over it. Is it a total non-feature that people are just getting excited about because there's nothing better to get excited about with the system?
You know what? I mean, that's a tough question to answer. The tech demo definitely does the best job of utilizing that feature.
I kind of assume that it's going to be the first and last game that does a good job of demonstrating the use of that feature. Kind of like how Nintendo is really good at showcasing the gimmicks of their hardware, but no one else was really good at figuring out how to use the gimmicks in their hardware.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Switch, wasn't there like the
fucking 3D Rumble or whatever, right? And it's
3D, yeah, that's it.
And the 3D Rumble's used by like 2 games.
I don't even think it's used by any of their first party shit, mostly. I don't think Animal Crossing used it.
I think that Snipper Clips uses it. Don't quote me on that. And then the Sanran Kagura people were going to have a breast fondling minigame where they were going to use the 3D Rumble to simulate grabbing the Jello boobs. It was really gross. But yeah.
Of course.
I swear I saw a trailer for that, but I don't know if it ever came to fruition or if it was just like an April Fool's joke or something. But they had like a bunch of people in lab coats and stuff, and they were studying like actual things of Jello, and then holding the remote, and then like wiggling the Jello around, and then holding the remote to feel, and then it was like showing the motion lines because it's supposed to be rumbling, and then they're like wiggling the Jello, and then the remote wiggles again, or the Joy-Con, I should say, not the remote. And they were going back and forth like that. And they're like, oh, yes, we need to make it feel like you're the Jello. Because I'm like, ah, yes, these people have definitely felt a breast before. Because breasts 100% feel like Jello. Anyway.
I don't know what to say to that, so.
Yeah. So, but yeah, getting back to the things, you don't really feel like the haptic feedback is...
It'll be interesting if it's used a bit more. There are some games like Control on the PS5 that use the haptic feedback a little bit. Basically, you can kind of feel like where in your response to the character, like where the rumbling might be happening in the game.
Okay.
Like, is it happening on your left? Is it happening on your right?
So it's kind of
like
some of that
information can be useful.
Okay, so it's kind of like playing in like a room with surround sound on it. You can kind of tell, or just even with headphones that are not crap, and you can tell where something is based on the noise.
But instead, this is like a feel.
Okay.
There can definitely be a practical use for this. Whether developers utilize it meaningfully will remain to be seen.
I would say that I'm in the camp of press X to doubt, but I guess we'll see. Especially because like Microsoft didn't include this feature in their controller, so I gotta assume most developers are not gonna do anything with this. Not gonna do anything meaningful anyway.
It'll probably mostly be Sony.
Yeah.
Doing this with some of their games.
When the Wii U ports of stuff came out, and it's like, oh, hey, here's like game that was released on all the other consoles. What features does it have on the Wii U? You can manage your inventory on the Wii U screen, which admittedly is very useful because doing inventory stuff on a controller sucks dick. Sorry, console people, but you are all cavemen. Having a touchscreen or a mouse is the best way to manage an inventory because you can just shuffle everything around really quickly instead of having to fucking click and drag and do all this stupid shit with a controller. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything I missed? Is there anything else you want to talk about with the PS5?
The things I'll probably end up talking about will be in the games we've been playing portion. Yeah, we're gonna have to edit the podcast bingo sheet now.
Oh, because I
can no longer
complain about not having a PS5? Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It only took almost a year. Okay, so with that, I guess we can get into our viewer question for this week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is from Thomas. He asked it when we were supposed to record our previous episode, but I was sick.
And I wasn't feeling all that well, so it wasn't going to be a very good episode if we recorded.
I've just been fucking the podcast from the dead. So, I mean, it's still kind of relevant, but it's starting, I am already seeing it kind of starting to fade from relevancy because people tend to forget about things because we're so used to news being, oh god,
we have short-term memory.
Yeah, I was going to, socialized? No, that's not the right word. Sensationalized. We're so used to news being sensationalized that the ability for people to care about things for longer than approximately 6 weeks doesn't seem to exist. It's about Activision Blizzard, which we've addressed before, so I'll give Thomas this whole spiel. So recently, Thomas watched the World of Warcraft movie, and that made him say, hey, you know what? Even though there's the controversy going on, I really want to play World of Warcraft again. So he subbed for another month. He does this periodically, and with all the petitions and the boycotts and all this other stuff, he figured that when he got online that the servers would be pretty empty, which, not a big deal for him. But when he got on the server, he found that there was a lot of people, like a lot of people, more so than any of the times that he's been subbed in the last several years, based on his memory. With that having been the case, he asks us, how effective do we think that online petitions or boycotts are in relation to games?
Based on the track record of every single attempt, it's 0%.
That is what I was going to say as well, but maybe not in those words. Did you want to start with this one then?
As you had pointed out, yeah, it's no longer really as relevant. The stuff in the lawsuit pertaining to Blizzard is still relevant, and I'm sure whenever it gets brought up by the California court, it'll still be like it'll come back in the news. But
just to clarify that so people don't get angry at me for saying that, it's still happening. It's still relevant to the people it affects, but by and large, it stopped being a talking point on social media in the same way that it was a couple of weeks ago. And I see the same kind of pattern I saw with COVID. And the only reason COVID keeps getting brought back up is because stuff that's bad relating to it keeps happening. Or something like the Black Lives Matter movement, another movement where, yes, this is still an issue. It's still affecting a lot of people. There's still a lot of people who are actively participating or petitioning against the way that they're being treated.
Yeah, but there's always this big wave at the beginning, and then the wave fizzles out.
Yeah, the big wave of people who are talking about it, the big wave of information, the big wave of people who are like every single day it's in social media. That's not happening anymore because it's fizzled out. It happened like for the Black Lives Matter movement, it happened last year between like May and June, and by the end of July, fucking seemed like a lot of people had forgotten about it. And the same could be said for Activision Blizzard this year, about the same time period in like May, June, or I guess it'd be June, July this year. Big talking piece. Throughout August, it's fizzled out and people aren't talking about it as much. It seems like some people have already done the forgive, forget kind of shit. That's very typical behavior. People just don't seem to have the capacity to give a shit about stuff for more than 30 days.
I mean, the same thing has happened with like
less important, less meaningful causes.
Mm-hmm.
I know the one kind of big example I had was Pokemon, because that's the thing that I've seen the most of. I don't know if that was your big example as well, Jason.
My example would have been, I'm pretty sure Riot Games had some...
Oh, yeah, with League of Legends, yep.
With League of Legends, and that game's just super popular still. Juggernaut.
Yeah, it still makes, like, one of the most profitable games, like, still has like 1 million players every fucking week. Like,
yeah, these games just, I guess because they're how they're designed, they're like, you gotta come back and play a little bit more, and then you get sucked back in, and you're like, I forgive you, kind of.
Yeah.
For your behavior, because I love the game, but I don't like you. But I love the game, but I don't like you.
Yeah, well, for Blizzard's games, a lot of them are that same kind of live servicey type model where they do try and keep you actively engaged. They do try and keep their hooks in you really deep. And the same can be said for Riot's game, League of Legends.
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon's a bit of a different beast because they have releases that come out. I feel like the brand of Pokemon has its hooks in people rather than the individual games. My first kind of encountering of like, oh, hey, let's boycott a game was back when I was 16 or 17 when Pokemon Black and White came out. And everyone...
What was the boycott for that? I don't even recall.
It's same shit as Pokemon Sword and Shield. People were angry that they removed a bunch of Pokemon. That was it.
Oh.
They just... Because like that game was a new Pokedex, so it had 150 new Pokemon, and none of the older Pokemon from older regions were going to be in those games, at least until the post-game. And a bunch of people were all rah-rah this, blah-blah that. This is bullshit. I hate this. These new designs are stupid. This game's stupid. I don't like this. I'm not going to buy it. And then fucking looking at the sales numbers, I looked at them before we were supposed to record last time. I haven't looked at them again, but Diamond and Pearl to Black and White, I believe the sales numbers are comparable. I think Black and White maybe sold like 1 million less than Diamond and Pearl did. But that's like 1 million less in a game franchise that always sells between 10 and 15 million units every single time it releases. It was like 13 million down to 12 million. And then when X and Y came out, it was back up to like 18 million or some shit.
And then you gotta remember that White and Black did a version 2, so they're like, they got to double dip.
I think they sold less than 10 million, but the second, like the third release, or the sequel release, I should say, they typically do like, I want to say 6 to 8, maybe 9 million, and I think Black and White 2 hit that range as well. These games were not at all affected by the supposed boycotts. Sword and Shield is another great example.
One of the best selling.
Oh yeah, I think it is the best selling one. The only one that is better than it, I believe, is not Black and White, is Blue and Red, and that's because Blue and Red have been re-released like 3 or 4 times, and they count them together every single time they re-release them. So, but yeah, Sword and Shield is either the best selling single release or it's the second best, but it's the second best selling cumulatively in the entire franchise. So yeah, fucking hashtag Dexit and the big, oh, we should boycott this game. That sure as shit went well.
No kidding. They only have 400 Pokemon. How dare they? That's less than half of them.
Yeah.
Me,
There's
that's a fucking lot of Pokemon. And also me asking my wife constantly, is that new? No, that's from the 7th gen. Is that new? That's from the 4th gen.
Yeah, I was also kind of like that while playing through the game.
I find that funny. I can't tell what's new and what's not because there's so many at this point. It's hard to keep track, and doesn't. Then that made me think: does this even matter that there's only 400? I think it's actually better that there's
yeah.
fewer.
No, I agree that it was better that there was fewer of them. So it's like one of those things people are like, I'm so upset by this thing, but then they fucking just buy it anyway. It's like one of those things where it's like, you gotta vote with your wallet, and if you vote to buy the game anyway, then clearly it wasn't enough of an issue. I know a lot of people canceled their WoW subscriptions, and it was like a big deal. What I will be curious to see is what World of Warcraft's numbers look like a year from now.
I'd be curious to find out once they get a new expansion out.
Oh yeah, I guess that's probably the bigger indicator is with the new expansion. I have a feeling that people will. I mean, not everyone. If you're listening to this podcast and you have the wherewithal to actually be like cold turkey, I'm going to be done with World of Warcraft. I'm not going back. Good for you.
You have a strong will that.
No, you have a strong will. You have a overwhelming.
1% of the population has.
Yeah, exactly.
Or less than 1%.
we're speaking generally. There are people who are obviously not going to, like, they are going to draw that line in the sand, and they're going to actually have the gumption to stick with their decision, and those people are admirable. And they, like you said, they have extraordinary willpower, and that's something to be commended. But I believe the overwhelming majority of people, as soon as like the next expansion comes out, they're going to go back to World of Warcraft, or they're going to hear their friends are playing it again, and then they're going to go back to World of Warcraft. When Overwatch 2 launches, a bunch of people are going to go back and they're going to reinstall Battle.net and fucking play Overwatch 2. Because that was, like, I think one of their, like, really successful games in recent memory. It's also worth considering that this boycott isn't affecting them, like, a lot in their total revenue stream. It is mostly happening in kind of like North America and Europe from what I'm seeing. Not as big of a presence from Europe, but that might just be because of the following and the circles that I'm in. But like the Asian territories do not give a fuck, and that's where they get a lot of money. So like obviously big money China does not give a fuck about how Activision Blizzard treats its employees. And that's where that company makes a shitload of money, so especially for like World of Warcraft and Hearthstone.
And I can't imagine the Call of Duty faithfuls are gonna be...
Oh, that's another good example. Yeah, the people who play Call of Duty, there's no way that when the new one. I mean, it might be a case of like this year's Call of Duty is down sales, but like I think the worst selling Call of Duty...
I don't think it'll be due to the lawsuit and the allegation stuff. I think it'll just be due to the game itself.
Yeah, I was going to say...
this one's World War II again. It's called, like, Vanguard or something like that.
Yeah, I don't...
No, it's tough to say.
There's a lot
of it has to do with the setting.
Well, that's just it. There's, like, a lot of factors that could contribute to that. Like, there's the lawsuit, the fact that they're going back to World War II, the huge abundance of... You'll get fed in a bit, just calm down. The huge abundance of free-to-play shooters that exist on the market, and most of them are of a relatively high quality, like a comparable quality to Call of Duty. Activision's not the market leader anymore, so there's a chance that these factors might slowly start to erode away at their dominance, but the worst-selling Call of Duty game was still, like, the best-selling game in the year that it released, so fucking... at least in the last however many years, the only time Call of Duty ever gets beaten is when Rockstar releases something new. So... And, like, there was a bunch of controversy before Red Dead 2 came out, and people still bought it, so, like... And people were like, I'm gonna boycott this game because of crunch or whatever, and then the game was still the best-selling fucking game that came out in, what was it, 2019, 2018? Whatever fuck year Red Dead 2 came out.
2017, I think.
Bullshit, it was 2017. First released in 2018.
Fuck, I mixed up the years.
Fundamentally, I don't think that the boycott for this will necessarily matter long term. In general, I don't feel like boycotts are very effective because the majority of people don't give a fuck.
No.
That's just the way it is. Like, the majority of people just don't care. And when the majority of people don't care, like, a boycott's just, it's not going to work. So... Do you have anything else to add? I feel like I dominated that last little bit a little bit too much.
Not a whole lot. I just know that these boycotts never work, and every time that they come up, I always find it kind of funny.
It's the same shit. Like, people say, oh, this is so bad, and then enough time goes by, and the same people who are complaining are inevitably back playing the game again. like nothing even
Always.
happened. I've seen the
I
pattern.
know people at work who do the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's like I've
like,
seen.
this is a terrible thing. Plays League of Legends again. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, sheeple.
I've seen the pattern happen, like I said, since I was like 16 or 17 with Pokemon Black and White. And I am 28. I am 28 now. It still happens. It's still the exact same thing. People they're upset while it's popular to be upset. As soon as it's no longer the thing to be upset about, they get upset about the next thing, and then they forget and they just go back to whatever the fuck they were doing before. Or even Ubisoft. They were in the fucking news a few months ago, and people were like, I'm never going to play Ubisoft games again. These motherfuckers are playing Ubisoft games. I've seen it. Like,
Yep, I know.
Is somebody who has the ability to demonstrate extreme amounts of willpower when they decide that they want to. I find it, on one hand, funny, and on the other hand, extremely frustrating. It's funny because when people are just like, I'm going to do something, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you are. And then, like, just seeing all these people be like, I'm going to do this thing, and then, like, fucking not even 30 days later, they just don't. And it's like, okay. If you ever ask people for a commitment that's any longer or any harder to do than just, like, a couple of days, people just won't put in the effort.
Yeah, I mean,
like a good
this podcast.
Yeah, or just like even like with the day off Twitch, right? That's just like one day. So they were able to organize like a lot of people for it, right? And like that was actually pretty successful, I would say, based on the metrics that came out about that. But then it's like if you'd ask people to take like an entire week off of Twitch, holy shit. It would have been like successful like for the first like 1 or 2 days, and then it would have completely fallen apart by like the third or fourth day. Like, anytime you ask people to do anything that takes any amount of effort, they just won't do it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
And boycotting a game when all of your friends are playing that game is super fucking hard.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
People just, they don't shut up about it. They all talk about it. Oh, I'm having so much fun with it. Yeah, exactly. And it's just like,
I'm not going to play Destiny 2 because they changed the shaders. It's only 3 items that I can do instead of 4. How dare they charge me for all this shit? I'm gonna boycott them.
Yeah, and then
later, I'm back. Oh,
yeah. Well,
shit,
then
I'm back here. No.
You go to lunch the next day, and all your friends are talking about how they're playing Destiny 2. They're having so much fun with it, and you hear that at lunch every day for the next 2 weeks until you finally cave, and then you start playing Destiny 2. Fundamentally, that's how it happens. Or it's like people are they're so attached to playing. Like I said, these games, they have their, like the brand or the game has like the hooks in so deep that people just can't escape. It's like Pokemon. People are just like, oh, I see Pokemon all the time and I go back to playing Pokemon. Just on that note, like when I was playing Heroes of the Storm pretty regularly, even though I wasn't having fun playing it, I kept going back and playing more of it. That's like, why? Well, like when I was at work and I was bored, I'd go on the Heroes of this fucking Storm subreddit. And I'd like read about stuff, and then when I went home, I'd be like, "Oh man, I want to play this game," because I've spent a large part of my day thinking about it. How do you stop playing a game with that has its hooks in you? Well, you fucking stop reading about it in your spare time. You uninstall the game, so you don't have to have to deal with that. You don't consume any media about it. You don't talk about it. You just fucking stop doing everything related to it, and eventually you'll stop thinking about it. And when you stop thinking about it, you won't feel like you want to play it. Like Monster Hunter, man. Like every time I talk about Monster Hunter with Keith, then we'll both end up playing Monster Hunter, and then we'll end up talking about Monster Hunter, and we cyclically keep each other playing the game, because when one of us starts, then we start talking about it, and then the other one starts playing, and then we start talking about it. Like 2 weeks where we're playing nothing but Monster Hunter, both of us. And this has happened several times over the past 3 years.
To in January.
Yeah.
Oh fuck.
When Miranda and Will were playing Rise, I don't know if you noticed, that's when I went back and beat Fatalis in Monster Hunter World.
I guess that's true.
So they were like talking about Monster Hunter a whole lot, and I'm like, man, I want to play Monster Hunter, so I went back and played Monster Hunter.
I refuse to play it on the Switch.
Yeah, well, it runs like dog shit on the Switch, so it hurts my hands.
I was going to say that the latter part being the...
Yeah, with my giant monster hands, that's definitely the bigger thing. But yeah, so like I get why it's so hard in some respects. In other respects, it's just because people can't put any effort into things. But yeah, generally speaking, I don't think boycotts have any... Like I say, they don't have any merit, but they very rarely have enough follow-through or impact to where like they very rarely have the magnitude they need to actually deliver the impact that they should have.
Exactly.
There's a number of factors that contribute to that. It's not just people being flaky. That's definitely one of the factors, but so I feel like we cover this topic pretty all right.
Yeah, just a bit late. It'll still be relevant at some other point when X developer does Y thing.
Yeah, and
that upsets the gaming community.
Everything that we've said will still apply because generally speaking, it's the same thing.
Just replace Blizzard with X and the event with Y.
Yeah, fundamentally.
And everything we said earlier is relevant again.
Yeah, it's like fucking... I will say one other thing. I feel like a boycott has a more successful chance of being an impactful event to a smaller developer versus a bigger developer. But I feel like even the indie developers I've seen who've gotten raked over the coals have gotten out fine. I remember when the Firewatch people DMCA'd PewDiePie because he said an inappropriate word on his stream. And they DMCA'd his videos, which were not related to that at all. They fundamentally weaponized the DMCA in a way that it doesn't. He challenged it, obviously, and it didn't go through. But a bunch of people were like, I'm going to boycott these developers. And I don't think they've actually released their next game, but I don't imagine that will affect the sales at all.
Probably not, because most people will have forgotten that by now.
Yeah, it's what's been like
enough time
5 or 6 years, so I assume most... Or like the Read-Only Memory 2064, I think is the title.
Yes.
They said some stuff where they're like, if you voted for Trump, you're a piece of shit and don't buy our games. And I'm pretty sure that until I just said that, I imagine most people forgot that they even said that because a bunch of people were like, wow, I'm not going to buy any games from this developer anymore or whatever.
I didn't even remember they said that, but...
I'm paraphrasing that because I don't remember exactly what they said, but it was something about, like, if you're a Trump supporter, then, like, don't buy our games. That was fundamentally what the message was. Or there was, like, a number of times that Pitchford, Mr. Randy Pitchford, got Gearbox in some hot water because he was running his mouth about some stupid shit. And people were like, oh, man, I'm going to boycott Borderlands. Or even Borderlands being on Epic Game Store. Wow, imagine how much that's going to affect that game's fucking sales. Borderlands 3 is the best-selling one in the entire franchise by a very wide margin. It beat Borderlands 2, which by all accounts sold way the fuck better than it ever had any right to. Not by virtue of being a bad game, just by being the sequel to an incredibly mediocre game that not a huge amount of people got really into. I just, when Borderlands came out, I didn't remember hearing anything about it, but Borderlands 2, that was a fucking event. People were playing the shit out of that. Holy fuck.
It's got a story.
Yeah, well, I think that Damien Clark, is that Handsome Jack's voice actor? Right, yeah, Damien Clark. Oh, he's Canadian. Look at that. He brought a ton of charisma and character to the performance of Handsome Jack and made, I feel like he's the single biggest reason why that game is so venerated and part of why people were so disappointed. They couldn't
leave him alone for
the
sequel and the Telltale Games version of it. So yeah, he was the character.
Even though he's evil, he just exuded so much charisma, and he just carried the fucking... what was really not a great written story on his very well-done performance.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
I agree. There is something to be said for if you just give a really good performance, and that's all you need to really sell people on a story. Like, Far Cry 3 is mostly remembered positively because of... Voss?
Voss.
Yeah, thank you. And then, like, I don't feel like any Far Cry game has had nearly the same kind of... people enjoy them, but I haven't felt like people would go back and reference them.
It hasn't hit that same stride, for sure. Yeah. But the antagonists are still very well done, I'd say.
But you don't have the same kind of... people don't revere the guy from Far Cry 4 or the people from Far Cry 5 in the same way that Voss from Far Cry 3 gets.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because Far Cry 6 is all single player, the expansion is you're gonna play as the villains.
Ooh.
So I'm really interested to see what they do with that. The villains from 3, 4, and 5 will all have their own little campaigns.
Interesting.
So I'm very interested to see what they do with that. I think the season pass actually looked more interesting than the main game.
It's too bad you can't just complete side tangent.
Go standalone.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's too bad that it's not standalone. And I do like when games do expansions that are fundamentally too
big. Like Doom and its recent expansions.
Yeah.
With Eternal. Yeah.
You can just dump them out as their own game. Ubisoft's kind of been doing that for the last number of years. I know people get really uppity because they're like, oh, they're rebrand. Like, if they release Far Cry numbered sequel and then afterwards it's Far Cry subtitle game, and the subtitle game is always, it recycles the map, and it's basically just an expand-alone by virtue of the fact that it does...
Primal and New Dawn or whatever it was.
Yeah. And people get really butthurt about the maps and shit being recycled and that, but I'm like, I mean, it's what it's like. Wow.
Did you actually get to explore the whole map anyway? You probably won't even recognize.
I feel like the people who are
changes.
complaining about this kind of stuff are the kind of people who don't
Buy them anyway.
Like they wouldn't have noticed unless you told them. I have never played these games, but every time I see people playing them or hear people talking about them, the appeal of these games is running around and doing a bunch of stupid bullshit.
Yes.
So why does the environment changing dramatically need to happen?
I mean, it doesn't.
It's just the
stuff you're gonna do in the world.
Yeah, it's a playground for where you're doing stuff in. And I mean, like, if you recontextualize some things a little bit, then that's all you need to do, right? So.
Well, they complained about Far Cry 4's map being reused Primal, but Primal was in a completely different setting.
Yeah, so they changed up some of the aspects of the map, and it was like, whatever.
The themes and what you do in that, so it didn't really matter to me when I played it.
Yeah. I mean, it probably didn't matter to these chuckle fucks either. They just need something to complain about.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's get into the games we've been playing. I can technically go first because I've been playing, a bit more.
I'm just excluding things I don't want to talk about. So I go read my blog. I wrote about some of the stuff I've been playing over the last couple of weeks, and I have no interest in saying anything more on the topic.
Fair enough. I know a few of those games we've talked about.
Before on the podcast as well,
So, before I got the PS5, la-di-da, I was playing a bit of the BioShock collection. Wanted to start with BioShock Infinite, because that was really the first one I played. I had skipped 1 and 2, mostly because I had read that it was a good starting point.
Can I interrupt you for a fun anecdote?
Sure.
Infinite was also the first BioShock game that I played.
Well, it did its job, clearly.
Same reason.
Yeah. It wasn't a numbered sequel. It was kind of its own thing a little bit with some connections here and there. So played that. Play as a white male protagonist who's...
You play as the most white male protagonist. Let's be clear here.
It was in the time when the gaming industry had this weird trend of just being like, it's got to be a white male on the poster. White male angry with gun.
Yeah, well,
that was it.
That's the thing, because the game's story is very much about Elizabeth. And
it's
Booker, the character that you play, is more of a supporting actor in that story.
Correct.
And I believe Ken Levine and some of the people who helped him write that story were adamant that Elizabeth should have been on the cover art, and the marketing department said, no one will buy this game if a woman is on the cover. So, I don't know, it's like one of those big sticking points.
Span the next few years when women were on the poster art of best-selling games like Horizon Zero Dawn and shit like that.
Well, I was just going to say, like, this game came out originally in 2011, and then in 2013, that was when, I mean, Lara Croft is kind of an anomaly in that she's always been the exception, not the norm. Square Enix released the Tomb Raider reboot, and it had Lara's face plastered all over the fucking cover, and that was in 2013? Let me double check. I'm not sure if it's 2012 or 2013. Tomb Raider. Yes, it is 2013. So yeah, not even 2 years later, Tomb Raider came out with Lara on the title, and or the cover art, and that was it. So,
yeah. I mean,
and that game sold relatively well, and I feel like, more recently, we've seen a lot of games that
Returnal
shy.
is a female lead. She's the one on the cover art.
Mm-hmm.
Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon's sequel is Aloy, a female. I mean, even The Last of Us 2 and The Last of Us, the original one.
I was going to say, Ellie's featured a lot more prominently in the cover art there.
Times have changed since over the last decade.
Yeah,
at least marketing-wise. They've smartened up.
Yeah, well, it's still very strange to me that because it is. The story is, it's Elizabeth. She's the main character.
Yeah,
and the fact that you've got Booker on the fucking... a guy who you never see, because it's first person, right? So you don't even see Booker, you see Booker's hands, and that's it.
See Booker's hands, you might see his feet the odd time. But yeah, never.
So yeah, you've never played it at all before, or is this a... No, sorry, you said this is a replay.
I had played it on the PS3, but I had gotten the whole collection as a PS Plus perk a while back, and I just had never gotten around to it, and I finally decided, hey, I'm gonna play Infinite first.
So
and
have you
then
played
I'll
1 and
play.
2?
I'm getting there now. I had not played those before, and Infinite at the time hadn't sold me on it as much, mostly because I wasn't really into shooters as much. So
I still would say I'm a pretty fair weather shooter fan, and I think that Infinite is a very okay game in terms of shooting. People can get angry at me if they want, but its shooting is not great.
no,
It's like not bad either. It's just like
it works.
it's like
That's
fine. Yeah, it like there's nothing inherently bad about it. It's just like not as satisfying as Wolfie or Doom.
Yeah, and getting to my point, I'm now playing BioShock 1.
The best of the three.
It's hard because
It's
atmospherically
not.
I love it.
It's not.
But
it's
it's
not
clunky.
a good shooter. Yeah, it's not a good shooter.
It's not a very good shooter from what I've played so far. I like
But
the
it's
systems. I like the setting. I like all the
so,
atmosphere. That's all working and gelling really well together, and that's what's probably driving me forward. But the gunplay is.
Here's the thing. Approach that game like you're playing Dishonored or Prey, because that's what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was marketed as being like a big shootery title, but the game has way more in common with immersive sims, but that's like not in the advertising for the game at all. 2K has a very confused idea of how to advertise things. So this game is fundamentally supposed to be like a spiritual successor to System Shock, which is like the OG immersive sim, that and like Deus Ex. So this game has got a lot in common mechanically and system-wise with those games, but they marketed BioShock as being a shooter, even though the shooting in it is not very good on its own.
It's not.
You have to approach most encounters by using the systems in the game.
Yeah, which I've learned.
Yeah, like a big
quickly.
Epiphany moment for me was instead of like gunning down a Big Daddy, which doesn't work.
It does not work.
I found a trash can, I filled it with a bunch of grenades, and then picked it up using a plasmid and whipped it at the Big Daddy, and then it just exploded and destroyed it in one hit. And I was like...
I let the Big Daddy on fire when he was getting his grenade, so all prepped up, and then he just killed himself.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you got to abuse your understanding of the game's systems in order to successfully navigate combat, and... because of that, it has a lot, like it does, it has a lot more in common with an immersive sim than it does a shooter. It's not about shooting, it's about thinking your way through the problems.
Yeah, like you gotta hack the drones and all the machinery that'll help assist you. You have to use the environment a little bit more cleverly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm gonna have the Big Daddy chase me around essentially this huge pole, and I'm gonna pop out, just shoot him, and then run away.
If there's like water on the ground, if you use an electric round on that, it will stun whatever walks, like really stun whatever walks into it. So that can be very effective.
Kill it, yeah.
If you can freeze an enemy, then if you use your wrench, a blunt weapon, even it's got the wrench.
Mm-hmm.
So if you then hit them with bludgeoning damage, you can just shatter them into pieces instead of having to actually deal with them with any ammunition.
Yep.
It's very much systems-driven combat instead of fucking shooting, which is weird because when you play Infinite, it's like nothing but shooting galleries. Yeah, it's just like a very okay shooter instead of having any semblance of the immersive sim aspects.
Yeah, I kept having the game tell me, use your powers. I'm like,
what the fuck
don't need to.
Yeah.
There's no super defensive powers that I have other than, like, I think one to, like, pick up all the rounds. But other than that, there's not a whole lot for defending against. There's just, like, lay traps, possess some machines that will kill all the enemies for me, and bada boom, bada bing.
They don't have a shock power or do they? In BioShock, I forget. I know, like, Infinite
in BioShock?
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got a shock one. That's the first one you get.
Okay. I couldn't remember if I was misremembering that.
And then it immediately sets up two enemies in the water, and it's just like, kill. I'm like, okay.
That's the game trying to teach you, like, what it's all about, right?
You get the firepower up, and then immediately there's, like, gasoline, and all the enemies are around you trying to, like, break into the office, and you're just like, I'm gonna light this gasoline on fire.
Or you can
They're
use
all
bees.
dead.
Bees will... Or is bees in 1 or is bees in 2?
I haven't gotten there, at least.
Sorry for spoilers.
I don't care.
There might
it's
be
fine.
a power later on that lets you shoot bees at people, which is hilarious because they just stand still and they're like, ah, bees!
I mean, in Infinite, there's crows.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like the
Yeah.
murder of Crow's power.
But yeah,
But-
good games. Hoping to play the rest.
My biggest issue with Infinite is like how much of that game is just there because BioShock. Like, have you noticed that now playing BioShock, where you're like, oh, this thing that's kind of like in BioShock Infinite that doesn't make a whole lot of sense is in This Is Why. It's because it was a mechanic that we've decided is intrinsically linked to the identity of this franchise. Thus, it must be in the sequel. Otherwise, bad things will happen.
Yeah, I'm noticing a bit more of that trend. I'm also playing the DLC for the first time in Infinite, and then that has you playing in Rapture, so I'm like, okay, maybe I should play 1 and 2 just to understand a little bit more.
Burial at Sea Episode 1, I would say it's kind of like a hybrid between the two, and then Burial at Sea Episode 2 is BioShock. I feel like that was kind of like a send-off for the developers being like, okay, we're going to like retouch on some stuff we've done before, and then we're going to be done.
I'm kind of sad that they don't have another BioShock or BioShock-like.
They didn't have anything new to do with the story and the mechanics, so they just said, we're done. If you look at the, I forget, something in the clouds, the first DLC for Infinite, they include a gallery.
Yes.
And you can see the concept art that someone drew on a whiteboard, and it was like a city under the water, and they had a big X through it, and then the next drawing was a city in the clouds, and it had a big check mark beside it.
That's pretty funny.
So it's like we did System Shock is in space, and then BioShock was underwater, and then BioShock Infinite was in the sky, and it's like, okay, we've done space, sky, sea, there's nothing left to cover. I hadn't played the original BioShock yet, but like I enjoyed it a lot more just because Rapture is more unsettling to explore. And then when I played like BioShock, I was like, wow, this is really good. And it was through playing Burial at Sea, specifically episode 2, and then finding out people were like, yeah, this is just like BioShock, but like a kind of a send-off to BioShock in the sense that it was very much like had a lot in common with it, that I was like, okay, I'm going to play the original game now. Because I played it before the remastered collection came out. The game from 2007. I had to do a lot of shit to get that to work on a Windows 10 machine.
I can't imagine. So yeah, that's that.
Okay.
What's yours? I
am going to start with the bad game, because fuck your bingo cards. It's not actually bad.
We're ruining their bingo card. Like, we have to redo the whole bingo card now.
I'm not redoing the whole bingo card. You can kiss my ass. It's the worst of the 3 games I've played, or I'm going to talk about this week, but it's not like bad. It's just like, it's kind of boring.
All right, what is it?
It's Mario Rabbids Battle Kingdom. It's kind of poo. I know a lot of people really like it, and it's probably...
That's the XCOM-like one, right?
Yeah, it's baby's first XCOM. Although I thought that SteamWorld Heist was already a really good baby's first XCOM, so this is like...
Pre-womb?
Yeah, I was going to say, what do they call when they're in the embryos? First XCOM?
Oh no.
Fetus's first XCOM? Yeah, so I don't play a whole lot of Ubisoft games, but it's probably the best Ubisoft game I've ever played, which is an indictment against
open worlds.
Just Ubisoft's terrible game design. So the combat is okay. It streamlines a lot of aspects of tactical shooters to a point where it's very easy to understand what's going on. Instead of having kind of normal hit percentages, you either have 100% or 50% or 0% chance to hit based on how much cover you're hiding behind. I'm pretty sure the numbers behind the thing are not literally 100. Well, 100 is pretty easy to do, but the 50% feel more like 70 to 80 for the player, and like 50 to 40 for the AI.
Well then.
I've hit a lot of the 50% shots, and I don't necessarily feel like...
You earned them?
Well, it's just like, I feel like that's skewed in the player's favor, which is fine.
So what made you play this game? I'm just curious.
On the weekends, when I'm at Miranda's house, because we don't live together, we only have one machine set up, not 2. So normally, we share the machine. Typically, if one of us has a burning desire to use either the Switch or the desktop, then the other will just, by virtue of respecting the other person, will just take the other system for the weekend for gaming.
Right. Makes sense.
So usually she's got a bunch of games on the Switch, so she'll just pick up the Switch and then I can play whatever on the PC, and then we'll chat as we're playing games. But she got really into playing Oxygen Not Included one weekend, I want to say about 2 weeks. Because of that, I was forced to play something on the Switch, and I was like, what is on here? It was either going to be that or I was going to ask Will for his copy of Breath of the Wild. Just for something to do. So yeah, I decided to play this. It starts off pretty okay. It's got like a lot of charm out the gate, and mechanics are alright. The problems I have with it, they don't really start to manifest until you're past the first couple of hours. I find myself asking the question, why is this here? A lot of the time while playing the game, and I feel like that came about because of how much indie games I play. I play so many games where the development budget just doesn't allow for the people creating the games to just include a bunch of useless shit for no reason. So when I play AAA games that have a lot of useless shit for no reason, it sticks out a lot. A lot.
That would make a lot of sense, yeah.
So I think the first thing is that instead of just moving from level to level to level, the entire game world is set up as a game world. So you have to get transported.
Is this the most open world you've played recently?
Maybe. It's not really like open world. So there's like 4 chapters, and then they have however many missions in them, and then there's fundamentally just corridors that connect the missions. But you have to walk to the missions, and I don't understand why it doesn't just move you from mission 1 to mission 2 to mission 3 to mission 4.
Well, is there collectible stuff along the way, or?
Yeah, but the collectible stuff is just art assets in an art gallery. You could just unlock those things after you finish the missions.
Or it's challenges for the missions.
The challenges?
In certain ways.
So that's the other thing. There's challenges, but they don't appear until after you finish the chapter. You have to walk through the entire chapter twice to finish all of the content in a chapter.
And there's no quick select.
No. Or at least if there is, I can't find it. You can generally go to areas, but you can't just go to straight to mission whatever the fuck. You can just choose I want to go to the start of the first zone, or the second zone, or the third zone, or the fourth zone, or the fifth zone, but you can't go directly to I want to go to mission 8 unless mission 8 falls at the beginning of one of the zones. I really don't like having to walk because the walking is excessive. In a game that's like Bayonetta, or like a fighting game, or in Monster Hunter, where you have these really actiony moments, it makes sense to have a cooldown period, because it's like a roller coaster where it's we have a really exciting bit, and then you need to cool down and relax so that the high moments still hit with the same intensity. But this is a strategy game. It's a fucking turn-based strategy game. There is it's not particularly intense. It's very...
Right, you can take your time with it.
Yeah, it's very relaxed. It's very laid back. You can take however the fuck long you want. There's no time constraints. It's not a very stressful experience. So...
This is paced very poorly then.
Yeah, that's what I would say. It feels like there's just this needless padding between everything. So you can, you can collect art assets. Okay, why don't you just give them to me when I finish the mission?
This sounds like a Ubisoft game for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels like it's just, we're going to show you how cool though we put all this work into making the world look cool. And I'm yeah, but I can see that in the background when I'm playing the missions. I don't need to look at what the artist did for half the game.
I don't know what to say. It's funny because I remember people saying, this is the least Ubisoft game ever, and
I don't agree. It feels very Ubisoft.
This is interesting to hear a differing opinion.
Even the fact that you have to go through the entire world twice to get to play all the content is that's also very Ubisoft. So that's the other thing. I feel like you shouldn't have to go through the worlds twice, and in fact, I feel like there should be half as much content as there is, and you won't hear me say that often about games. Some of the challenges are really interesting, and a lot of the fights are really boring. My perfect scenario would be to put some of the challenges intermingled into the normal campaign and to get rid of some of the missions, because a lot of the missions feel like they're just the same fight over and over again. The battle arena changes up a little bit, but the enemies you're fighting don't change substantially enough, and the environment you're in doesn't change substantially enough for it to feel like a different fight. It mostly just feels like it's there for the sake of making the game longer.
Gotcha.
And / or distributing the rewards you need to upgrade. Speaking of, it's a tactical game with upgrades. Yay! The weapon upgrades they are what they are. I feel like the game gives you enough resources to keep everyone kind of up to par. You can't keep everyone up to par, but you can keep like enough of the people in your party up to par, and then like kind of slowly increase people over time. There's also skill trees for some fucking reason, which I think is stupid. The skill trees are really homogenous. Most of the skills are exactly the same across every single character.
This is a Ubisoft game.
So like every character has a movement speed increase. Every character has like a health increase. Every character has a thing that will increase, like will give them a fucking active ability that they can use in combat. Every character has a secondary weapon they can unlock. Every character has a thing that will increase the amount of damage they do when they're up higher. Every character has some skill related to increasing the benefits that come from their specialty skills. Every character, when they do like a team jump mechanic, they'll have a thing that makes it so they can remove status effects whenever they do a team jump. Like the only skills that are genuinely unique on a character by character basis are the ones that are related to their skills, but it's usually like the same types of bonuses on every single. It's like, oh, if this does 30% of whatever, then the next one will be like 40, and the next one will be 50, and the next one will be 60, and it'll be like the same on all the characters. So it's like for Rabbid Peach, it increases her healing. On Rabbid Luigi, it increases the amount of damage, like health he can steal, because he has like a health steal thing. On Mario, it increases the amount of damage that he does when he jumps on people's heads. With Luigi, it gives him... Yeah, with Luigi, it gives him additional jumps. So his whole like gimmick is that he can jump on multiple people.
He can jump out of this game and go straight into Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yeah. On Peaches, it makes it so that she can absorb... She's like a paladin. She's cool. I liked how they made her... Instead of being like the dainty princess, she's actually like super duper tanky, and she can like fucking take damage away from people. So that's the other thing. A lot of the characters are like very boringly designed. I'm about halfway through the game, and Rabid Mario and Peach are the two characters I just unlocked, and they're like the most exciting characters so far. Mario is like a generalist balanced character who's bad at everything. Rabid Peach can heal, which I hate when healing is in games because it feels like cheating, especially in strategy games. Rabid Luigi is pretty cool. He's very weak, but he has lifesteal. You have an incentive to like get really close with him and like have him run into people and then shoot them because he gets the lifesteal off of smashing into people. Luigi is a sniper, so he's a little bitch. So he's really good at hitting people for high damage from far away vantage points, but he has no health, so if people get the jump on him, he just crumples like a fucking fart in a hurricane.
What?
He crumples like a fart in a hurricane. Don't question me. Mario Rabid is kind of like a typical bruiser, so he can run in and he can take damage and draw aggro, but he also does a shitload of damage. He's kind of like a take damage and deal damage sort of character, so kind of your archetypical bruiser. And then Peach is like a paladin, so she can mitigate damage from people, and she also has some pretty good close range damaging tools, which is I thought that was very interesting because like I was expecting Peach to show up and be like a fucking another cleric or some shit. Instead of that, she was more of a paladin archetype. So, but yeah, I don't think that the character archetypes are super duper interesting. I feel like part of that is the fact that I just am being made to play so many missions that just aren't unique enough to demonstrate what these characters have on offer.
So they're really copy and paste?
Yeah, they're extremely copy and paste. Like, unless they introduce a new enemy or have some kind of, like, really interesting gimmick mechanic, the fights feel very samey. Like, very, very samey.
So Ubisoft really can't escape its own DNA?
No, it can't. This is an extremely Ubisoft game. I think the people who said it was not an Ubisoft game or didn't feel like an Ubisoft game are...
questionable?
They're just fucking... yeah, it's questionable. They're sus. To say as few offensive things to some of those people who might be listening to this podcast. No, me opening the drawer is not an invitation to come over, go back to your terrorist chives. I think the skill trees are boring. I think the characters are boring. I think most of the missions are really boring. The story is extremely safe and extremely boring so far. The combat's okay-ish, but it's spread across a bunch of really boring missions, and it's not all the challenges are made equally, and I don't really feel like going through an entire level again to play through the challenges. It's fine. It's not like bad. It's just like very boring.
2 out of 5.
Yeah. Because I've played better games than this, man. Like I've said, SteamWorld Heist is a better, like, baby's first XCOM. It has simplified and streamlined mechanics, but you go from mission to mission to mission, and the upgrading is handled better, and the story is better, and there's not a bunch of useless fluff in the game. Or like Into the Breach is like the best tactical fucking game I have played in years. Compared to what else is on the market, it just doesn't feel like a very good game. Especially when the other stuff on the market is really cheap. For me, this is typical Ubisoft. It's got too much fluff.
All substance, no.
No substance. Fucking. I was gonna come up with a different word for fluff, but it's like all fluff and no substance. So it's just like it's got a lot of unnecessary stuff visually. It just tries to distract you with looking really pretty. The cutscenes are nice. I will say that the cutscenes are nice. They're animated really well. They're all in engine. The characters are all very expressive. I like that.
Okay, so this could have been a movie.
I mean, yeah, like Luigi's Mansion also had really good cutscenes. I feel like that was part of the charm of that game as well. But yeah, this game just can't escape the Ubisoft DNA that I feel like holds it back. It feels like there's just a bunch of chunky bloat. It's like this game needs to just trim all the bullshit out. None of these giant walking pathways that take, it's like a third of the game is walking to the fucking missions. It's like, why? Why?
Because Ubisoft.
Yeah, basically. I wouldn't recommend it. I'm not going to check out the sequel. Granted, Miranda bought this. She didn't even make it past the first area before, like the first world chapter before she got bored. I'm still passively playing it as something to play. I don't know if I'll finish it, but whenever she is using the computer for stuff, I'm just like, oh, I'll just continue to play Rabbids thing.
Sounds like it would be pretty easy to pick up again. You wouldn't forget much, and it's
no, there's nothing to forget. The game's super duper easy. The story's super obvious. Every time I pick it up, I'm always like, oh god, that's right. This stupid shit is in this game.
Okay. Now in the timeline, I got my PS5. So booted it up, and Astro's Playroom is the game that comes as the tech demo, essentially.
Everything I've seen about this game makes it seem like it's just a way for Sony to jerk themselves off, kind of like how the history modes in Smash Brothers are, well, at least until Ultimate were kind of like that. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, they they bring a bunch of characters as the little robots. So there's like a Pyramid Head for Silent Hill, there's Aloy, there's God of War and the Boy. So they have a bunch of little scenes around their world that they built. This game's just basically a collectathon of stuff. You get these artifacts that are themed in each world for one of the consoles. So there's some kind of interesting things, like learning that there was a mouse for the PS1.
What the hell?
Yeah, there's a bunch of like little things that like learning about like some of the history of what was available for the console and stuff like that. PS3 having like the Move stuff. The PS Move dildo sticks and the gun thing for like shooting and stuff like that. So that was kind of interesting. For some strange reason, they included a pachinko thing, which you just have to collect the in-game money to run, and you get an abundant amount of that. So it doesn't take that long to get everything. And once the pachinko machine's done, it's done. Though they annoyingly throw in like trash into the thing as well, like a can that's empty, like a soda can that's empty. It's like, you didn't win. I'm like, why even bother including this? But alright, cool. I guess I'll waste a little bit more time getting a few more coins. Not that you really have to if you're going for all of the collectible stuff in the game. You'll probably have to run through the course a couple times to find everything. So some of the highlights is that each world is a different component of the PS5. So one's like the solid state drive, so it's kind of themed in a way where everything is going super fast.
Yeah,
that kind of highlight that part. There's a fan world where you have to, for a few things, there's the mic and you have to blow, just like on the DS.
I thought this was liquid cooled. Am I wrong on that?
Well, I mean, in that the fan also had an ice world in it, so you're probably right.
Okay.
So yeah, every world's themed in a different component of that, and it explores the controller's different features. So like the PS4, it's got that touchpad that you can also like kind of write on. to do some stuff. Like, for one part, it's like moving this ball around. I'm not really selling it, obviously.
No, I would just, with the way you're describing it, really doesn't sound that exciting, which is surprising to me. Well, maybe not so surprising to me, but because a lot of people were. It received very positive reviews. In some cases, it received what I would call as overly optimistic reviews that made it sound like it was
the second coming of Jesus.
Yeah, like the big PlayStation 5 exclusive. And I'm like, yeah, well, it doesn't actually have any exclusives that it launched with, so. Well, that's not fair. I guess Demon Souls. Yeah, which the fucking
port of.
Yes, but also that's like the game for like the hardcore gamers and not the more casual audience. So this
Correct.
was like the only offering, I guess, aside from Bugsnax, which I think launched a little bit later, but we're gonna get into that in a bit.
That game also had a PS4 release.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
It did. It was not exclusive to the PS5 either. Like many games, that is the trend.
I feel like you're going to see a lot more of that going forward. Yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn's doing a dickhead move. Sorry, not Horizon Zero Dawn, sorry. Horizon Forbidden West is doing a dick move where if you buy the standard edition for the PS4, that does not entitle you, nor does it let you have that $10 upgrade to the PS5 version. Fuck you. Give us fresh money for a new copy. God. It's stupid.
The console people really need to start playing on PC so they actually understand that what is happening. They're just being ripped off so badly by these companies. That's so unacceptable.
Yep.
So dumb.
It's worse than the Ghost of Tsushima director's cut version where you could at least
upgrade
for $10.
At least that you could say comes with some extra content.
Yeah, I'm just saying
right?
I'm just saying the PS4 to PS5 version like that. If you got the PS4 version, to upgrade you have to pay the $10. Which is stupid, but Horizon Zero Dawn is like, you bought standard edition PS4, fuck you, no upgrade to PS5 at all.
Pay an extra $10, why? Because the game costs $70 on the PlayStation 5 instead of $60.
Tales of Arise, a game I'm actually considering buying now that I've got the better hardware. It has the PS4 and the Xbox games first, and I think they either are releasing the PS5 and the Xbox Series version, or that comes later.
Sorry, did you say
that's
Arise?
A free upgrade.
It's
Tales
not
of
Ares? I looked at I only glance at words. I looked at what was there.
It's A-R-I-S-E.
Okay. It is Arise. Oh, sorry, I just heard that. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. But it's like, yeah, I probably fucking just glossed over the title. It's the same group of developers who subtitled their game Berseria or some shit. It's like, that's not even a word, so yeah, okay.
They finally used three
Tales
English
of
words.
Arise. Wait a minute, this is all English.
Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
This doesn't make
Good
sense
Lord.
to me.
Yeah, so Astro's Playroom,
Anyway.
It sounds like it was okay, but it was, I guess okay as a free...
It's okay. It was free. It explores its feature set. It does a good job of exploring its feature set, and it doesn't overstay.
Sounds like it's just like
welcome.
a good tech
I think it's
demo,
about like a
not
5
really
hour
a great game.
experience.
It's not something that you would pay money for of your own, voluntarily,
no, for sure
right?
not.
I feel like, would you have paid money for Wii Sports?
Probably.
I would have as well, and it sounds like this is just from what you're talking about. This is
Wii
not
Sports, Resort. Technically,
it was not as good as Wii Sports, but I feel like Wii Sports kind of took like the 5 best ideas and packaged them in with the Wii already. So Wii Sports Resort had to be like, we got to get a little more creative here, boys.
Ping pong. Wait, this is just tennis. Ping pong.
Ping pong was in Wii Play, I think.
Oh.
Which you fundamentally bought because it was a free game that came with a controller. Like, you bought the controller and it came with the game. Not that you weren't buying the game and getting a free controller. I was like, no, I'm buying a controller and getting a free game.
Yeah.
I love the cow tipping game in that. Okay.
Sorry, I'm just remembering a lot of people in my high school were like, we're going to do cow tipping. I'm like, all right then. Have fun with that.
Fuck. You live near enough to farmers' fields to do that?
I went to a high school in the country.
What the fuck?
They did like after school and shit like that. They said they were just going to do that. And I'm like, all right.
This is news to me. Oh shit, is it my turn?
Yeah, I have nothing more to say about Astro's Playroom. All
right.
Is it time?
Time for what?
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know. What was that supposed to be a joke about? I don't know what the fuck you're referencing.
No, is this the half hour I'm going to have to listen to Strive or not?
Oh, it can be.
It's your call.
Guilty
You go
Gear
with what you
Strive.
wanted to go with.
Yeah, Guilty Gear Strive. So I got Strive when it was on sale following Evo. I think it should go without saying that I am having a lot of fun playing it. Like a lot of fun playing it.
That's good.
It was not what I was expecting. I was expecting it to be a little bit closer to Them's Fighting Herds, which is more freeform combos, more like lots of button inputs and all sorts of crazy shit. This is actually a lot more dialed back and a lot more beginner friendly. A lot of the combos are really short and really high damage. I believe the developers actually decided they wanted to make Strive more beginner friendly in that way.
Mm-hmm. It seems that way based off of the reception.
Yeah, obviously as a new Guilty Gear player, that's very advantageous to me, but I don't like when developers do that for legacy series because there's an established fan base of those series, and when you remove too much, you take away some of the aspects of the game that they've become really attached to. While I've been a big advocate for making fighting games that are more approachable, I don't want it to come at the cost of some of the more spicy offerings that exist in the genre. I want there to be games that are approachable, but I don't want every game to be approachable. There needs to be a spectrum of games. Easy stuff, intermediate stuff, and really hard stuff, so that a wide array of different players can have their needs catered to.
Right, but you have to think from like the developer's perspective. Like, we want to expand our audience. What's the best
then
way?
they're gonna
Casual.
Yeah, make it more casual so more people can get into it.
Like, I don't
So,
know
yeah,
how
that-
well Guilty Gear sells in general, but I'm sure this one is selling much better than previous entries.
Numbers show that this one is the best selling one in the entire franchise.
Yep, that makes sense.
For a AAA fighting game, this is probably the most niche AAA fighting game.
Right.
I think that Arc System Works' other games... Jesus Christ! I don't know if you can hear the sirens that are going down. Okay. The Blaze Blue,
Yep.
I think it was what kind of preceded Guilty Gear, and they still make Blaze Blue titles, but I feel like that is the more popular of the two games that Arc System Works puts out. When they did Guilty Gear Zerd, which was the previous Guilty Gear game, and they had like the look that everyone knows Guilty Gear for now, that was when they got the ability to make Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Did you commit a crime on your end?
No, it's just fucking, it's the goddamn, the students are back in town. The students,
oh no, it's September. Shit, I forgot.
Just side tangent. It's September after Labor Day weekend. So like, it's Labor Day weekend this weekend.
I'm living in a university town too.
Yeah,
so
I live in a fucking town with a big college and a big university. People in the States, it's a big community college and a big college.
I live in a city that's got 2 universities and 1 college.
Yeah, so it's like
we're both
fucking
in hell for the next
well,
week.
not even. It's more than that. Like the traffic has been ridiculous. The amount of foot traffic downtown has been ridiculous. The amount of people not wearing masks, fucking holy shit. And then the other thing is that like the goddamn ambulance dispatch and the fucking police are constantly downtown because some fucking dickhead is making a fuss. Like, I don't understand how people who are trying to attain higher education are this fucking stupid. Anyway.
Strive.
I feel like Guilty Gear Zerd was kind of like a job application for Dragon Ball FighterZ. And that was one of the biggest fighting games ever to come out because it was tied into a really popular, well-established anime. And fundamentally, I feel like at this point now, where unless you tie a fighting game to some other well-recognized property, it doesn't sell really, really well. Smash Brothers obviously is the best example of that. It just ties itself to
everything.
Yeah. And then you get like anime fighters, and they typically do really, really well, where the kind of like Street Fighter sells to like a Street Fighter crowd, and then like to some newcomers every single time a new one comes out, and the same can be said for this, which is why Guilty Gear Strive, I think it hasn't even sold 1 million copies, but it's like the best selling one in the entire franchise. It says something about the scale of the audience that this game attracts. That said, I'm having a lot of fun playing it. I don't think I said it on the podcast, but I said it to you. Just the style, the aesthetic of this game appeals to me so much. Yeah, all the characters are just like super butt rock. The music is so fucking good. It's the kind of thing where I play it, and even if I'm like losing a bunch, I still have a lot of fun. I feel like I've gotten to a point now where I can just like sit down. If I'm having like a really bad day and I'm really stressed out, I can sit down and just play fighting games. Like even just strive for like a couple of hours and then I just feel better in the same way that like other games that I really enjoy will just make me feel better after I finish playing them. So it's very odd that a game that can be like this, you think the fighting games would be like super stressful, but this game is like not stressful at all to play. Or at least I'm not finding it stressful at all to play, which I think speaks to how much I'm enjoying playing it.
What rank are you? Because I know there's the ranked world system that like kind of teeters you on where you should be and fighting against people of that same level.
Yeah, so there's 10, well, I guess there's 11 levels. I'm on level 6, so I'm right in the middle. I'll hop in, I'll win a bunch of matches in a row. It won't promote me up to 7, but as soon as I lose like 3 matches in a row, the game's like, you're getting bumped down to level 5 now. And I go to level 5 and I win like 1 match. It's like, okay, you're level 6 again. I'm like, what the fuck was the point of that?
Okay, that answered my question. I was thinking in my head.
What were you going to ask?
Is the goal to get to 1 or is the goal to get to 10?
10 is the highest floor that you are allowed to. So, like, the thing is, you can't go to floors that are lower than your rank, but you can go to floors that are higher than your rank. When I get demoted to 5, I usually just stay on the 6th floor and keep playing on the 6th floor until it promotes me back up to the 6th floor.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah, been kind of chilling at the 6th floor because I feel like I run into opponents there. Sometimes they're eating glue and they don't know what they're doing, and then I end up demoting them down floors. But other times I'll fight people who are like, I would say, who have a similar level of understanding of the game systems and their character to where I am at right now. So I'm not exactly eager to push beyond that. I still don't really know a lot of the character matchups either. I guess I got 2 kind of like big complaints, and one of them's not really the game's fault. The other one absolutely is the game's fault. So I guess I'll start with the one that is the game's fault. The online system in this game is kind of bad. First of all, it takes like 3 or 4 minutes for it to even get connected to the internet when you start up the game. This is even if you just want to play offline, it will not let you play the game until it talks to the server and like gets your character shit and like validates that the game you're using isn't pirated. It takes a little bit to get into a lobby. Not as long, it takes like a normal amount of time to get into a lobby. And then you have to walk up to these stupid stations and like click into the station. And sometimes it just fails to connect to the station. And sometimes you challenge people and it will just say like failed to connect and it won't even look like it tried to connect. And you're like, why did it fail to connect? And then like people will just teleport all over the lobby. So I think that there's just like a issue with the game keeping track of where everyone is. And that's why sometimes you'll like not connect because someone else took the spot, or sometimes it's because the person who was at the station that you were trying to challenge just isn't there anymore because they quit. The fucking lobby hasn't updated with that information yet. It's very poorly constructed. Herds, a game made by 10 people, is a much better lobby system. The people are never desynchronized as badly as they are in Strive. And you just walk up to people and you click a button and you say, I want to fight you. And they can reply, yes.
Sounds simple.
Yeah, in Strive you gotta sit at these stupid stations and there's connection errors that can happen with these stupid stations. The other thing I don't really like is it shows what character you're going to play before you start the match. This shouldn't be a thing, so I usually have to go around and challenge other people who have free spots in their station because the characters I like to play are considered cancer. So when people see what I'm playing, they will immediately quit out. They will not accept that. They'll be like, I want to play you. They'll see who they're playing, and they will immediately quit and leave. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, that is so stupid. I hate that so much. So yeah, I've been playing the sole bad guy who is considered like god tier at the moment. He received a couple of nerfs, but I've been having more fun playing the pirate lady May, and everyone's just like, nope, I'm not playing this. I'm not playing against you. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, it's like I just can't get over the fact that you can just like look at who your opponent's playing and be like, no, I'm not gonna play this person. Like, that's so stupid. And then, like, the other thing that pisses me off with the lobby system is that, like, every single time you fight someone, it's, you get to play them 3 times in a row. But if they get promoted up or down, it doesn't let you finish the set as soon as that game finishes. That they have the promotion.
That's really lame.
I had like a couple of really good matches where I either won or I lost, and then the person was either promoted or demoted right after the first game, and we couldn't do the full set. And I was like, what the fuck, man? I was having a really good time, and you just like sent the person to a fucking like I can't fight this person anymore.
Systems.
Yeah, so I wish it lets you finish the full set of 3, or like at least waited until like if someone quit out, and then it would let them have their promotion and let them go to like, you know, the promote up, promote down.
Right.
Because yeah, the fact that it doesn't do that right now is to me that's very frustrating. Especially because I just said I have trouble finding matches sometimes, and the people who aren't afraid of fighting me are the people who are good and who will give me a really good match. And the people who are afraid of fighting me are people who suck and who I will demolish, and I have demolished. That's a little bit unfortunate. I'm not as big a fan of some of those systems. The other thing that is really bugging the shit out of me is that I swear to God, half of my matches have been against the same character. I'm
Is it just
not
the
even
right matchup, or like
no. It's just
character-wise,
everyone in low tier plays Giovanna. She's super noob friendly. She has a bunch of auto combos. She has a bunch of really easy Gatling combos. So I swear to God, half of my matches online have been against this character. I'm so sick of fighting Giovanna.
Do you win most of them?
Honest to God. It depends. I would say that some people actually understand how to use the character to her fullest, and they give me a run for my money. And sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. Other people don't know how to do anything on this character and get their ass beat.
Well,
So yeah, I'm just sick of fighting this fucking character. I would just prefer to see more variety. And when I get to fight people who actually use different characters, it's always such a joy to me. Like I faced somebody, like the first time I faced a person who actually played Faust properly, they just destroyed me. It was a glorious fight. I was laughing my ass off the entire time. It was so crazy to see them do all this stupid shit as Faust. Most of the time people with Faust just let me beat the hell out of them. They have no idea how to fight back. I fought a Potemkin earlier today. He fucking like command grabbed me out of the sky and deleted like half of my health. That was fucking awesome. I fought a Milia once who actually knew how to do proper combos, and holy shit, she deleted me. I had a match earlier today against a person who was playing Leo, and I lost all 3 games, I lost all 3 rounds, because after he beat me, he got promoted up. But every single round, we were both within a hit of winning. I just like got the wrong read. So those were all really close. I really wanted to run that back, but I couldn't run that back. And I'm like, God damn it, I want to just play these other characters so I never get to see more. No, you gotta fucking fight Giovanna. Woohoo. There's also a lot of Jacko, but she just got released as a DLC character. So I think that's fine. People were like, oh, this is the new exciting, like this is a brand new character. I'm excited. She's waifu bait, so of course I want to play her. That's something I don't necessarily have a huge problem with. And then like, I see a lot of Kais as well, but like not even remotely as much as Giovanna, and he's also like considered a very beginner friendly character, so I'm okay with that. But it's like if I face like 2 Kais and 2 Jackos and like 1 other character, then I'll face like 5 Giovannas. For me, that's completely unacceptable. Surprisingly, May and Soul are both supposed to be really approachable, and I fought no Souls at all. I am the only person who I've ever seen play Soul online, and for May, I have fought 1 ever.
Jeez.
Which I don't know if people don't want to play them because it's like, oh, there's like a stigma where these characters are only for people who are brain dead, and I'm like, I have no problem with that. I just want characters with simple combos who do a lot of damage. And both of those characters do that.
The whole point is they're casual, but I guess as you said, Giovanna is casual. I
have no qualms with playing more casually oriented characters. I play the fucking hunting horn in Monster Hunter. Like, that is not a weapon about doing crazy combos. That's a thinking man's weapon. I'm more interested in just getting the right reads on people and playing the mind games with people and getting the schmicks. So I don't care if it's super high crazy combos. There's characters in this game that still have more complex button inputs and more complex combo routes for people who want that kind of experience from the game, but Soul, Kai, Giovanna, and May are all like super duper easy to play if you just want characters that have like really easy buttons and really easy combos. It's just that I feel like Giovanna very specifically was tailored for newcomers, and holy shit, people, like every fucking person played, like, oh my god. Maybe if I get to higher floors, I'll see less of her.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would make sense.
But like, I'm not at a point where I can even compete with people on a higher floor, so that's like a non-issue right now. So it's like unfortunate that I'm not going to get a whole lot of matchup knowledge, but I guess I can work on getting combos with May. There's a ton of, well, before we started, you just still have the wiki page open, and there's like a few opportunities I'm seeing in here
for improvement
for some areas where I could be getting combo strings to get a little bit of extra damage, and I'm giving up free damage on opportunities that I'm opening up on my opponent. So if I actually start to capitalize on that stuff more often, that's what's gonna push me up to like fundamentally like the 7th and 8th floor, and just have a better understanding of how to actually play the game. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. Obviously, I mean, aside from the fact that I just spent a bunch of time complaining about things that I'm bothered by, but like the combos are really, they're really satisfying. I feel like the way the game's animated also, like on counter hits, the game has like a little bit of slowdown, which makes it feel like you just like punch somebody into the sun whenever you get a counter hit, which feels really good. The supers all are like really well animated and all have like really chunky hits with them, so they feel like really impactful when they land. The dust combos, holy shit, I fucking love the dust combos. There are moves that are always an overhead, and when you hit someone with them, if they're always blocking low, then you can follow it up by chasing them, like launching them into the sky, and then it like plays kind of like a quasi cutscene, and you can just juggle the shit out of them for a ton of damage, and then punch them back down to the earth. I love landing the dust combo on people. You can just feel your opponent's like life force drain through your computer screen. It's great. The visual presentation of the entire game is just fantastic. And then like the characters all have like a ton of appeal. I feel like every character in this game looks like they're the main character of an anime, which is great. They all have like their own kind of like, they just scream that like what they're about, what their personality is, and I love the character design in this game. It's real good. Strive's a really good game. It has some hiccups to it, but I am willing to overlook those because there's enough other aspects about the game that speak very specifically to my sensibilities. I do wish that some of the online stuff was just a little bit better, though. So, yeah, it's a good game.
You and everyone else.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. It's like hard when you go from an indie game that does it better than to like a AAA game that just doesn't seem to understand how to do it at all. Especially when you think about like, okay, this game was made by like a much larger team than what some of the other games I've played have been working with, and their solutions are a lot better implemented, so maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they're better. They have a smaller, more tight-knit team so they can actually work out the issues better instead of like a more corporate attitude. So I gotta think that all game development in Japan is probably very corporate, so yeah, well. On to what was this, your third game?
Yeah, I think this will be my last one. Bugsnax. Yeah, this was the freebie for when the PS5 launched.
The first real PlayStation 5 kind of game you played?
Kinda, yeah. So yeah, this is all about catching a bunch of bugs that are essentially snacks.
Snacks. It's Bugsnax.
Hence the title. So, you start off as your character who's like a reporter, going to this island to basically interview like the person who found the island and like the inhabitants, but that person's not there, and you have to figure out the mystery of like what happened with them. I am just gonna put out spoilers.
Spoilers.
I'm gonna put out the spoiler tag for
Bugsnax.
Bugsnax because like most of it is just story
Okay.
that I can talk about. I assume you won't play this, right?
I don't know. I looked at it and I'm like, maybe, but I don't know. The price tag's a bit steep for what seems like not really a super engaging experience.
Yeah.
I showed it to Miranda and she wasn't interested either, so yeah, probably not. You can go crazy.
So turns out because the Bugsnax can transform these grumps. These are what the people are called,
Okay.
and you can transform their bodies.
Yeah, say
Their
like a
arms, their
banana-looking
limbs,
one, it turns their like legs into bananas.
pretty much, yeah. Turns out that the whole plot reason is that these Bugsnax are parasites, actually.
Oh my
They-
god, that's
So they
horrifying.
transform the body. So there's kind of a horrific scene of like one of them being possessed. Like, well, no, it's not really.
So wait, so as
horrific,
you're feeding them bug snacks throughout the entire campaign, is there like a moment where it's revealed they're parasites and then everyone goes crazy because they're like
Well, that'd be nice, but
their
no.
bodies are like
That's just the
trying to
plot
kill
twist
them?
at the end, and
Oh.
as long as they don't eat any more, they can get it out of their system. Because when they eat the bug snacks, their personalities kind of change a little bit. So like one of them is very like cautious, but then like she be kind of. This game goes into a lot of like topics I wouldn't expect. Like a game.
It's a very dark
this-
game considering how fluffy it looks.
It's dark in the sense that it like touches on depression and being kind of like a social outcast and stuff like that. Like each character has their own problems that they're dealing with. There's this husband and wife, and the one's just like, I'm gonna do my own thing. Why aren't you supporting me? And she's like, well, I want to do my thing. And they have to kind of talk and get over it and realize, like, hey, just because we do our own things doesn't mean we don't, like, love each other and shit like that. So I'm like, oh, okay. That goes into a deeper topics than I was expecting from the game that was advertised. But in between all that is, like, you have to collect these snacks of the bugs and trap them and stuff like that. So you get a myriad of tools at your disposal that the game does an okay job with combining the tools. Like, at most, I think you'd have to use 3 of the 6 tools to maybe trap a monster.
Okay.
So there's, like, the tripwire, which will trip them and stun them. There's the net that gives you, like, 10 to 15 seconds to kind of go in and collect it, among some other tools that are present.
Would you describe the catching as more puzzly than anything else?
Yeah, because a lot of it has to do with, like, just simply figuring out, like, what can I do in order to interact with this thing. Like, one of them is, like, this grabber thing, but you can't even use it to grab out, like, some of the flying enemies. You have to trip them, and then you can lay down the trap and then collect them. Or, like, some of them is, like, oh, they're on fire because it's, like, it's a s'more thing that flies, so it's on fire constantly, so you have to cool it off.
With, like,
you
ranch
can use
or something?
other. There might be, like, another enemy that you need to bump them into, like a popsicle.
Oh, okay.
So you have to use some critical thinking in order to kind of figure out, like, what do I need to do in this environment in order to catch them. There's 100 to collect. 4 of them are bosses. Those are probably the more interesting ones. Like, there's a moth that's just essentially like a big pizza.
Pizza moth.
And there's one that's, like, basically just this big birthday cake that you have to light the candles on fire in order to blow it up.
What the fuck?
There's some interesting mechanics the bosses utilize. Like, the moth thing is in the desert, and you have to stun it by catapulting the enemies that it spawns with, that are essentially, like, I can't remember exactly what they're called, but they're bombs, essentially. And you stun that, and then you pull down the pizza slicer and slowly kill it.
This sounds super morbid.
When you get down to it, yeah, this is a darker game than more I'm thinking about it.
Creators of Octodad.
Makes sense. It's a decent game. You've got PS Plus and you've added it to your library. Give it a try, at the very least. It probably clocks in around, say, 10 to 12 hour mark.
Would you recommend it if it wasn't free?
I'd recommend it at, like, the $5-10 value, maybe at most.
Okay.
It's not...
Be very disappointed if they heard that, considering they had to pay their voice actors a ton, since they got nothing but, like, famous people to do the voices in the game.
Yeah, that's so weird. I didn't really notice it, to be honest. So
yeah, I don't ever get that whenever they use, like, name recognition for voice actors, because it's like...
Because I found that out afterwards, like, oh, this is the voice of, like, the Bumblebee one, and I'm like, oh, but why?
Yeah, I feel like voice acting is, like, not a thing where you get what you pay for, where it's like, oh, if you have, like, this celebrity voice actor, so you can put their name on the fucking thing, it's like, that's just advertising. That's just part of your advertising budget. There's very few times where I feel like the celebrities, they get to do stuff.
We have to not think about video games as movies.
Yeah, well, but it's
unless
like...
you're Sony, I guess. I don't know.
But even in movies, it's like an advertising thing. Like, there's only a few exceptions I can think of where, like, celebrity actually being on a thing. Like, the late Robin Williams. You saw his name on something. It's like, okay, this is going to be good because Robin Williams has a ton of charisma in his performance.
But now you see, like, James Corden in this movie, and you're like...
Oh, good. I know not to watch it because that guy's a fucking
exactly.
dickhead. I don't like him very much. Sidebar.
Yeah, I'm sure he was great in Cats, right?
Oh my god, him and fucking Rebel Wilson were the 2 worst pieces of shit in that entire movie. Holy fuck. They just wouldn't shut the fuck up. There's, like, so many times where
It sounds like them.
During their own numbers, they kept interrupting it for just, like, what were supposed to be jokes, but none of them were funny. And then, like, during other people's... like, other cats singing numbers, they also had a few times where they said something, like, snarky and interrupted the song, and I'm like, what is the fucking point of this? Like, you're just interrupting the song and killing the pacing of the song, which is some useless bullshit. Like, I get that being a snarky asshole is your whole thing, but, like, this doesn't work. It doesn't work most of the time when they're paid to do it. It works even less when the play musical they're adapting just doesn't have any room for this garbage.
Am I giving you terrible flashbacks to that movie now? Sorry.
I mean, it's fun. I'm still, like, extremely upset that that movie was able to be produced with the amount of money that it was. I don't think Tom Hooper should ever be allowed to direct a musical ever again. That man clearly has no idea what he's doing. Oh yeah, we're not going to put the music in the actors' ears so they can sing on time. Let's just make them choose what the time of the song is. But you didn't give them anything to go off of for the time. Yeah, they can just choose whatever they want. It lets them express their performance. The fucking musicians have to change the tempo of the song. What the hell? And the dancing, oh my god, the dancing's like, fuck it, we're just gonna do it how the song's supposed to be done. So dancing's just constantly not on beat. Except for the one song where the singer was a dancer. That's like the whole gimmick of that song. And he was tapping his foot the entire time. So it was actually on beat, because he's like, well, I don't want the song to be, like the dance number to be off beat. So, I'm convinced, like, there has to have been a number of people from, like, the music side of that production who told that dickhead that, like, this is not how you do this. And he was just like, I don't care.
We do it my way.
Basically. He's an American, I think. But yeah, it's just, we're going to do it my way, because my way's better. Because, like, Les Miserables, I can't say it.
Les Miserables? Yeah.
The Miserable. The Miserable. In that, he let the singers just choose how they were doing things, and it got like a ton of Oscars because the stars aligned, and this purposefully bastardization of how musicals are supposed to work actually came together because the musicians were able to make it work. Cats, not so much. The same set of unique circumstances, the stars didn't align in the way they needed to, and this horrible disaster could not be salvaged in the same way that The Miserables could be salvaged. I'm not even going to try and say the fucking French name. We've established I can't speak French. Je suis monté.
Anyway, that's
all
I really had to say on Bugsnax.
Got me started on cats, god damn it.
It's because I brought up James Corden, because that was my best example.
Yeah,
he's in everything.
He's
that
a
I hate.
tit.
Like,
that's because he's got the charisma of a fucking spoon. He's like Henry Cavill.
All right, what's your third
Henry
game?
Cavill got cast as Geralt, who is also a charisma black hole, and it worked perfectly. My third game is Wildermyth. Wildermyth is awesome. If you like RPGs, you should play it. It's an extremely good title. So the kind of central design of the game is that it's less of a scripted RPG, and it's more of an RPG storytelling engine. So it uses some random procedural aspects to generate the locations on a given campaign map and what the different environments will look like that you're fighting in. But there's like a handful, I think 5 scripted campaigns where the overarching story is the same. So like the main quest is the same. So like the start and the end of each chapter of the story will be the same. Sans for the characters that are in it. But all of the individual events you'll run into across that time will be mixed up and changed so that you end up having a unique journey through that story. The different characters have several opportunities where they either demonstrate their unique characteristics and then kind of build up their own stories and their own legacies. For example, I've kind of told this story on Twitter. I was going to use it again in the posts. You guys will get to hear it a lot. It's one of my favorites. I had this mystic named Maya, and she was a bit of a goof, and she was goofing off when my group of explorers were going through some infested caves. And she ended up falling down a passageway and finding this like shrine with this bright stone in it. She was a little bit greedy, so I was like, oh, of course she's gonna pick up the stone. So she tries to pry out the stone, and unfortunately, she kind of messed up while she was trying to pry out the stone, and it ended up getting lodged in her skull, specifically in her eye. So it took her eye out, but it was like magically infused. So like I think it was like her left eye became this like magically infused stone. And with that, she was able to like see like through terrain and environment. Because it was like magic. It also had like, it was somewhat sentient. So it would like guide her to treasures that were not normally accessible.
Huh. That's interesting.
And then like over time, the stone caused parts of her body to mutate. So she ended up having a stone arm that was fashioned into the form of a blade. And that ended up making her one of my most, like, she was one of my most powerful party members for that campaign, because she could cast magical spells and then she could, like, run up and just beat the hell out of stuff with her stone arm. She was just a fantastic character, and just like she continued to have very eccentric journeys throughout the entirety of the campaign. And that's what Wildermyth does so well. It creates these characters with their own stories that makes them feel somewhat unique. It's not like when you play The Witcher and every Geralt is the same, besides,
the
like
dialogue
some
trees,
of the unique. Yeah, besides some of the unique decisions you may make, or how, like, in Mass Effect, there's fundamentally two ways to play Shepard, because that game is, you can't play a mix of good and bad. You have to either go all good or all bad. It's very binary.
Mm-hmm.
Either you're just a complete piece of shit, or you are a beacon of justice. I find that the way that this game treats characters, you get to see some of their high moments, you get to see some of their low moments. There's some things that end up being really memorable because of that, and I feel like I've been filling in some of the blanks, but that's something that humans are naturally inclined to do. But you end up with a series of really unique and interesting stories about the journeys that your characters had across a campaign that end up making it feel really personalized and very special, because the journey that you went on with, in the same way that some people get really attached to RPG characters from other games. I don't necessarily have that same attachment to them, but with the more personalized stories of Wildermyth, I have been getting attached to them. In the campaign I just finished earlier today, we came to a tipping point where we were trying to help out this group, and the only way to prevent the enemy forces that were kind of coming down on us from coming down on us was we could have fought back against them, but it was pretty slim odds. It would have been a really hard fight. The alternative was that someone from my party could step forward and willingly sacrifice themselves, and that would save this group of people. And after fucking like 50 years of adventuring in game time, Scylla, my party leader, who is going to retire soon anyway, was like, after being the most important member of this group of people I'd accumulated, it felt like that was her, like, kind of final
hurrah.
Like, her final act in this quest was to sacrifice herself so that the rest of the party could get out alive. And so she did, and that ended up having some long-term ramifications for the final arc of that particular campaign, that when you look at it on kind of a just like a coding or more mathematical, methodical level, it's like, oh yeah, of course it's like X plus Y equals Z. But because of like the kind of story that had been woven throughout the entire campaign, when that kind of moment happened in the final battle, and like the kind of ramifications of that decision from the previous chapter had come to fruition, it felt like Scylla was still there with the party, fighting with them in that final altercation, even though she wasn't actually there. Like, she was there spiritually. And that's something that, like, as a human, I have invented that that's what happened in the story, because, like, that's how I've connected the pieces of that story, and Wildermyth does a really good job of helping to make your brain do that with the information it gives you. You will naturally find the pieces and connect the dots, and then you'll end up having this story that you've kind of crafted with these characters that will feel really personal, because you've, like I said, you see them in their high points, their low points. You'd have all these interesting story beats that happen where they define certain aspects of themselves that may have long-standing consequences. It's very interesting to see all of that kind of stuff play out over the course of an entire campaign.
Does the game have like a way of you recapping all of this information, or is it all just like you remember what happened during the campaign?
It has a My Legacy feature where every single hero who makes it to the end of a campaign is listed, and it will have a brief history of them. Given that I have very recently played through these campaigns, I can scroll through it and immediately remember all of like the high points, but it's like a high level summary, so it doesn't have the kind of specific things that I have thought of that make up what this character's journey was like.
Gotcha.
Obviously the game would have no way of knowing about that. But by reading it, I can go, oh yeah, this is this character, they did these things. This is like the big kind of things that stood out to me about this character. This is why I like them. The one kind of big weakness of the game is that it's not infinite. It's not like a human dungeon master. I have seen across the two campaigns I played, I have seen a couple repeats of some of the stuff that's come up. So it's not infinite.
Yeah.
So there is moments where you can see behind the curtain a little bit, but I feel like for a video game that obviously doesn't have the ability to be as flexible as a human being would be, Wildermyth has done an excellent job of capturing the aspects that make tabletop role-playing so enjoyable, and for my money, this is one of the best RPGs I've ever played. It hits so much of the things that I like about RPGs, and just doesn't have any of the bloated, nonsense, grindy bullshit that the genre has become in a lot of ways for the mainstream. Also, it has vaguely tactical combat. The combat's not super duper difficult, but it is a little bit tacticky. That also is something that very much speaks to my sensibilities. But yeah, it's very interesting because I'm not someone who typically speaks about story as being a very important thing in games for me, but that is 100% why this game is so good and why I think it's so special. Definitely worth checking out if you consider yourself a big RPG person. I mean like tabletop RPG, like a traditional RPG, not fucking I like to grind for loot. If you like to grind for loot, you will hate this game. That's not what this game is about. I don't know, if you say RPG, like if you like RPGs, some people will be like, oh yeah, I love playing like Borderlands, and I'm like, that's a game about grinding for loot. So I feel like I have to specify that it's like this is like a very traditional like tabletop role playing type experience.
All right, I think that ends our show this episode then. Okay, so thank you all very much for listening. You can follow this Twitter, this
Twitter on podcast.
I'm a practice.
You can follow this podcast on Twitter at the Frosty Canucks. You can also follow this podcast where podcasts are available. We post to Anchor, Spoofy, Apple, and Stitcher.
Yes.
Jason, where can people find your shit?
You can find my shit at JavaManimation on Twitter, where I post a myriad of things that I'm working on.
Doing a lot of art recently.
Been more of an art kick as of late, so.
For my stuff, you can follow me at FrostyLight. Go read my blog, frostylight.ca. And if you want to see my art-related stuff, you just go to Instagram, which is also FrostyLight. That will get you just the art without all the shit posting that happens on Twitter. You can do the last bit. I'm not gonna steal your thunder for that.
Thanks for everyone for joining, and stay cold. Oh shit, Frosty! Damn it.